Hello everyone and welcome to Infinite Realms and welcome to the big 50th video. So, I was trying to think of something special to do for this one, and several ideas were kicked around. There were some audio problems with a couple of ideas, there were some issues with some other ideas, so I finally settled in on take this opportunity to start looking at the Star Wars trilogy, specifically the prequels, the sequels, and the original trilogy. So I'm going to break this up into three parts. This will be the first one. We're going to deal with the most recent ones, the sequels. Primarily because they probably are the most divisive of any of the movies I'm talking about, and honestly, there's a lot going on with them. So we might be here a while. So I'm going to try my best to break it down into actual movies themselves. We're going to start off with Force Awakens. Now, Force Awakens, everybody does give it a hard time. A lot of people give it the main criticism of it just seemed like it was cut and paste from A New Hope with some flashier effects. And I have a hard time arguing with that. I did like the slight meta commentary by Han Solo. Is like, okay, it's bigger, but where's its weakness? And, well, the weakness is it was all the same. Again, get to that later. But, at essence, the same thing kind of happened with the prequels. And a lot of people don't give episode 1 as hard a time for that because there are other glaring problems. I will really get into some of the things about episode 1 when I do the prequels, but for the most part, you got to think about it like this. There's a kid on a desert planet, meets up with a space wizard and a mentor. Mentor dies, kid flies a spaceship and blows up the big threat. In Phantom Menace, it was the controller ship. In the original trilogy, it was the Death Star. So, those things do kind of fit in here. Now, they kind of skew a little bit because our kid who was found on a desert planet doesn't go and actually blow the place up. It's actually done by our pilot guy, kind of our sort of Han Solo character. Now, another weak point is they did kind of copy a lot of the basic tropes from the characters. Rey's supposed to be Luke. Finn was kind of an odd man out and was a lot more interesting, though. I mean, we had this guy that was brainwashed as a kid and suddenly broke the brainwashing with no real explanation how he did that. And then just kind of, well, we'll get into the rest of Finn's story later, but that was his basic story in Force Awakens. And of course, Force Awakens also suffers from fan service. It's like, even when the Millennium Falcon shows up, it's like, oh look, it's a Millennium Falcon. Yay! Okay. It kind of does lose its charm after a few viewings, though. And you realize what it is. It's like the first time you watch, you're like, oh boy, Millennium Falcon, yay! And then, after a while, it's like, oh look, here comes the Millennium Falcon, yay. So there's that too. Now for me, I think one of the biggest issues I had with Force Awakens was I thought I should have been seeing the fall of Ben Skywalker. Or Ben Solo. Sorry about that. Because, to me, that seemed like the more compelling story. And it seemed very crucial to what was going on. Now, I can get around that at this point. I mean, it's no biggie. But I do wish we had seen more of that and kind of more of what happened with Ben and him becoming Kylo Ren. Now, the other thing was, and I really got confused because at the end of Return of the Jedi, we see Anakin come back as a Force ghost. So, here all this time, Kylo's kind of worshipping his grandfather's burnt up helmet. No explanation as to how that got, by the way. It's just kind of there. More on this later. So, does he not know that Anakin had this massive turn at the end of Return of the Jedi, or that essentially saved the galaxy and became something of a hero. Is that not public knowledge? Maybe it's not. I could see that happening. And even still, if it's not, it seems like Leia would have told him, or Luke would have told him, or somebody. But also, if Anakin's the Force Ghost, why isn't Anakin going, hey kid, yo, this is what I did as a Force Ghost? I mean, all of those things could have and probably should have happened. So, and there's a whole lot of things I think get glossed over in the movie. Like, at no point do we get the idea that Starkiller Base is Ilum. Now, for those who aren't deep into Star Wars, Ilum is was the planet that Jedi's went to get their kyber crystals, and it's featured in the Clone Wars cartoon. Now, to me, some mention of that in the movie would have been really cool and would have gave it a whole lot of depth and world building. And that was kind of the problem with The Force Awakens. It doesn't do any of the world building either. So, stepping back again, Finn was the more interesting character because you wondered what was going on with him. Why did he break his programming? What happened there? And was there something we needed to know about? Poe, I thought suffered the most out of this because he, disappears for half the movie and then shows up again later, and he really doesn't get any kind of story other than he is believed to be dead. Rey, on the other hand, a lot of people criticize Rey. Now, I'll turn on this is that, her being able to fly so well in the Millennium Falcon. Well, it's not like that hasn't happened before. Again, let's go back to the first two movies. Luke had never piloted an X-Wing. He had piloted his T-16, but was apparently a very good pilot. Naturally, he just did it. So, it's not like piloting isn't an unheard of thing to be really good at when you're basically a Jedi. And, going back to Anakin, I mean, he had never flown a spaceship. What does he do? He does a pretty good job of flying a Naboo starfighter. So, again, he had done pod racing, but, Rey probably did something equivalent to that on Jakku. So, again, there you go. Now, a lot of people praise that, oh, wow, look, the more photorealistic stuff. Well, yeah, but, again, well, it almost seemed like, hey, look at us, we can do photorealistic stuff. It was almost like that was a marketing ploy more than it was about making a good movie. And I think that also suffers. And, Maz Kanata hands Rey Anakin's lightsaber, which the last time we saw it is falling down somewhere in Cloud City. And we don't really get this idea of how Maz Kanata got it. And again, this is one of those things that irritates the crap out of me, is that apparently, we're going to have to read a book, some other book or some other thing to find out this secret. I don't think that's been revealed yet, and honestly, I don't give a damn anymore. To be perfectly honest about it, it's just, and I'll get to why I don't give a damn in just a few minutes. So, yeah, a lot of this movie just suffers from the cut and paste aspect. I mean, I never will forget watching it for the first time, and they said, we can go down this trench. And I'm like, wait, they never discussed a trench in the planning stage? Where was this trench coming from? I mean, it literally just suddenly, oh, there's a trench run now. Da-da-da-da-da. And yeah, it's that that really didn't go over well. And when they blew up the galactic capital, I actually thought they blew up Coruscant, which I thought was a bold move. And then I found out, oh no, it wasn't Coruscant. Oh, never mind. Not a big deal. Just looked like Coruscant. Yeah, nothing major. They don't really say this plainly in the movie either. It's just kind of glossed over. And, they destroyed a whole system. Okay. Yeah. So it's bigger. And that's a lot of what happens in this movie is that, oh, look, I have better special effects. Well, yeah, of course you do. It's like, what, 40 years later. Of course you have better special effects. Technology's come a long way. That's really the thing going for it, is it's got better special effects. Now, the other side of it is, it seems like Rey's really great with a lightsaber as soon as she gets a hold of it. And I give you that one. She does seem to handle the lightsaber a little too easily, and defeats Kylo Ren a little too easily. And I thought that at the time, too. I didn't make it a major criticism of the film. I just thought it was a big oversight. That, all of a sudden she's like, beating up Kylo, who I would assume had some levels of Jedi training, at the very least. I know they say in the movie, Snoke says that his training is not complete. And we don't know what level of training he had, but he had some training. So that was another one that was kind of, okay, confusing. How is she able to do that? I mean, I know the Force goes a long way, but the Force ain't everything. You got to kind of know what you're doing with the lightsaber. You can't just pick it up and say, ooh, what's this shiny glow stick do? It doesn't work that way. But still, of the sequel trilogy, I will say Force Awakens is probably the best of the bunch. Because it looks good. There is some familiarity. It does follow some of the same beats. It's like poetry, right? And the stuff that's different is good enough so that it's not totally the same movie, but there are a lot of similar beats in the movie. Now, that being said, what people were kind of saying was do something different, do something different, do something different. Well, be careful what you wish for, because that's how you get The Last Jedi. So let's just admit up front, Last Jedi was the most divisive movie of the Star Wars franchise. Period. Now, am I going to say it's a complete turd waste? No. No, it's not 100% bad. It's also not 100% good. And this is what I don't get, is that there are massive flaws in this movie. And some people will just gloss over it because it's Star Wars. And then other people will completely trash this movie and not recognize some of the good qualities that came from it. Yes, one of the best things is it tried to give you something different. And that would have been great, except there was a whole lot of lack of thought, obviously, in this. Now, the other thing was, when the backlash started, some people in the upper echelon of Disney had to kind of revisionist history things. Rian Johnson himself said, "Oh, Empire Strikes Back. People hated that movie when it came out, and now people say it's the best movie ever of the trilogy." And it's like, okay, dude, you're lying. That's it. You're lying, Rian Johnson. I'm sorry. You're just flat out lying. You probably hated it. That's probably the truth. But no, it was voted People's Choice Award Best Picture that year. And yes, there are a few criticisms that are against it, but you know what? These are the guys that would have went against anything that said Star Wars on it at the time. I mean, it might be like somewhere around 5%. And I mean, there's critics who are like, it doesn't matter how good the movie is, I'm going to say it's bad. It's that guy that has to be the one that knocks the 100% off of Rotten Tomatoes. Those guys. Those sourpusses who only want artsy-fartsy films. Those guys did hate Empire Strikes Back. For the most part, everybody loved that movie. It was well received, and it made a shit ton of money. So, Ryan, you lied. And that soured things a lot with the fans. I mean, it was just like, come on, you gonna lie now? And already people were giving us a backlash first, and then there was a whole thing with Kathleen Kennedy having to say, well, Star Wars fans don't like strong female characters. And I'm like, oh my God. You did not just say that. And she is still getting backlash from that one comment today. anything, anywhere, anything, people will bash her for it. And even new criticisms are still related to that comment. You don't have to go far to find it. It's all over. It's everywhere. Now, I'm not talking about, oh, this is a toxic fan base, and no. I'm talking about there's backlash to things that just simply aren't true. It wasn't that we didn't like strong female characters, though. We as a fandom of Star Wars, it was certain characters we didn't like, and now Kelly Marie Tran, that whole controversy, and how she basically quit social media over it, and that was a shame because that further tainted things as far as the content of Star Wars goes, and it's still carrying on today. We won't get into that full discussion, but it bears mentioning. Now, let's just break it down to the movie. Okay, let's just start out. First off, unlike previous Star Wars movies, we start right at the very end of the last film. Weird, huh? That caught me off guard right away. I was like, wait, what? No time has elapsed? Because usually you get a couple of years have elapsed since the last film. Maybe a year, maybe two. Who knows? So, we're in this chase, breakneck chase, and there's be space battles. Okay, I'm all right. I'm down with that. So, here comes Poe, wants to destroy a Star Destroyer. Then we get the very slow, lumbering bombers. This idea was stupid. Now, these bombers went against every bit of logic of the Star Wars universe. They were slower than crap. We've had bombers in the Star Wars universe. They're called Y-Wings. And they've been established as bombers in Clone Wars and Rebels and in just every continuity possible. So, why are these low, slow, lumbering things here? Now, I think someone in a conversation mentioned to me, well, they carry more bombs. And I'm like, okay. And? I mean, what does that matter if they're going to get destroyed? I mean, it's... And I realize the Resistance is kind of ragtag and they get what they can, but this whole mission just seemed like a bad idea from the very beginning. And only one bomber makes it, and then it drops its bombs and destroys the Star Destroyer, but then that gets destroyed. Yeah, I mean, it's just... I think what was trying to be portrayed here was the proud spirit, do or die kind of bravery, and to me it just seemed like somebody don't know how to plan, because if... And I mean, plus destroying the Star Destroyer was pointless. I mean, Poe... this part was right when Leia was jumping his case about it, and it was like, yeah, it was pointless, Poe. What are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? Why are you doing this when it's time to go? We need to get out of here. She was dead on that one. Now, demotion probably deserved. What results from that makes absolutely no sense. But again, I'm going to get into that later because we got to kind of go with the movie as it is. So, yeah, they escape. We go back to Rey, and then Luke famously throws the the lightsaber over his shoulder, which is a weird scene. I might have... Now, if something was said that was his father's lightsaber and it caused him a lot of pain or something, or just a lot of aggravation, not even pain, aggravation, I could probably see that working. But, you really don't get an explanation as to why he threw it over his shoulder, especially later. Again, get into that in a minute. And, Luke's kind of a grumpy old man at this point. Blah, 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 blah. And I kind of, as this story progresses, I kind of see where it's going. And I gotta say, at first I thought Luke was testing Rey. I really did. I got hints of Yoda's acting, the way he was acting like just a strange little creature, from Luke. You know, he's just acting like a grumpy old man, and, you know, seeing how she would react. And I could see the Jedi doing that. That would make perfect sense because, you know, Yoda did it. Of course, Luke's going to do it. So, again, this goes on, and Luke continues to be a grumpy old man. So it's not an act. It's Luke. And he promises to teach her about the Force. Or teach her 3 lessons. He actually only teaches her 2, so I don't even know what that was about. And that never gets resolved, by the way. It's just kind of left dangling. But Rey kind of, you know, she goes through the motions, and then she has her kind of trippy dippy dark side tree thing scene, and it's really odd and weird, and I don't know what was trying to be conveyed there other than nothing. Let's just be trippy dippy, like the trippy dippy weatherman, you know? Remember George Carlin? Yeah, it kind of comes across that way. Now, that doesn't mean I hate all of it. I thought there were some good points in there, and that, you know, again, it was a training thing. It wasn't, but again, you know, there's nothing other than Luke's grumpy old man. I mean, we do get this story of what happened to the Jedi school that he had. And, you know, it's obvious that traumatized him somewhat. But it seems like a pretty extreme reaction. I can see some reaction if that's a storyline. But I can see him feeling like he failed Ben. But at the same time, something doesn't ring right about it. And a lot of people pointed out, you know, this is the guy that said there was still good in Vader. And he's right, there is. There was. And it's like, but he's ready to condemn Ben. That does seem a bit extreme. So I would be remiss if I didn't go back over here to the Resistance, and of course they're getting pursued through hyperspace, which I have no problem with. I can understand tracking through hyperspace. That's it. Yeah, I can dig that. But there's a whole mess of places where this goes off the rails. Primarily in just the basic physics of what is being said. The big lumbering ships, the big ship says, well, we can't catch them because they're lighter than us. Huh? That's not how physics works in space. That's not. That made absolutely no sense. Let's never mind that we can just launch a bunch of fighters out there and they could deal with it. But we only launch 3. Just 3. And of course we get the Leia flying out into space. Now, a lot of people said, oh, this is where Leia should have died. Well, first and foremost, she hadn't died by the time Last Jedi had finished editing. The sad tragedy of Carrie Fisher's death had not happened yet. So I can see why that didn't occur. Actually what bothered me more about this scene, it wasn't the Mary Poppins part. It was that Admiral Akbar was there, and I did not notice he died in that scene until someone pointed it out to me. And I'm like, and I rewatched it, and I'm like, holy crap, Admiral Akbar just died. And a lot of people, well, he's just that guy that is a trap. But he was a pretty major character in Return of the Jedi. And he was just kind of in the background and just died, and nobody batted an eye. It's like, huh? How dare you? I mean, So then starts what is one of the lamest side. That makes absolutely no sense. Oh, I forgot to mention that the First Order also has smaller spaceships that, if it's weight problem, they could probably catch it. I mean, I'm talking like Star Destroyer class spaceships. Okay. I mean, this is there's so many logical inconsistencies in this movie. It's just, wait a minute. You just scratch your head and go, wait a minute. And I believe this is a lot of people's problems. It's stuff like this. It's just, none of this is making sense. So then we get to probably the worst thing in the world, is the entire Canto Bright sequence. Well, first and foremost, Rose and Finn go there in a shuttle that apparently can do hyperspace, that apparently nobody gives a crap that it left. Nobody even bothered to, one of these smaller First Order ships didn't follow it. But it has a lot of space. Now, my assumption would be they've got some more of those, right? And they can go to hyperspace, right? Why are we going off in 10 different directions? Just let these ships float. I mean, if they don't give a crap about that shuttle, obviously, why don't we go in 10 different directions, let them chase these things until they run out of fuel, and then they can shoot them. We'll get some more craft later. Okay? Yeah. So Canto Bright was... oh, that was a train wreck. That was such a train wreck. And I guess I kind of see what Rian Johnson was going for. He wanted to show the upper side of life in the Star Wars universe, which is funny because I think, actually, and we're on the 3rd episode of Kenobi, I think that show did a better job of this than the Canto Bright sequence. I mean, it was just, why am I watching this? What is going on here? So then, of course, we have Rose, and just turns out she was a slave. Okay, I get you. Okay, we're getting some character out of this woman. All right. Don't like this whole sequence, but thank you. And then, of course, we have Del Toro shows up, and he's a guy that can help. And they need a code breaker for some reason to get into the Imperial First Order ship to... Yeah, it was weird. They wanted to shut off the tracker, yet, they didn't track them going through hyperspace, so why? Just why? Meantime, back there, some guys, it's been an honor to serve you, and he's still steering a ship that is running out of fuel, and why doesn't he just get out with everybody else? Put it on autopilot. You can do that in Star Wars. It's been done. It's done all the time. Just get out. And then, of course, it falls backwards. It's just like, hello, physics. Hello, physics. It would just keep moving at the speed it was at, because that's physics. That's how physics work. I mean, until another force pulls upon it, it's going to keep on going. If there's nothing to resist, it's not going to fall backwards. I don't even... It didn't... I'm lost. I'm lost. I mean, it's just like, okay, so spaceships falling towards the Star Destroyers. Okay, sure. Not that, Star Wars always was about physics, but anyway, yeah. So, then, again, they get back, and of course, Del Toro turns on him predictably. No kidding, really? Didn't see that coming. Hey, guess what? Phasma's back. Okay, great. You had one line in the last movie. Whatever. Why are you a badass? So, and then Finn takes her on, and, we get... Before I get to that, going back, another illogical move is Hodo. You say that name, you know where I'm going. And this one is obvious, okay? And I'm not going to talk about it too much, but Hodo has a plan, does not tell Poe. I get that he has been demoted. I get that he's been a problem. He's a hothead. But to act like you don't have a plan to one of the pilots who's probably going to be piloting these shuttles, is stupid. He's going to need to know he pilots a shuttle. If I remember correctly, he did pilot a shuttle. So, I mean, again, I get that well, yeah. Anyway, and in all of this, I left out Finn being a joke at the very beginning of the movie with the whatever that medical bubble wrap was that was on him. Yeah, so he was regulated to one of the more interesting characters to a joke in bubble wrap. So yeah, we'll just gloss that over. Yeah, going back. Okay, going forward. Okay, so anyway, Poe sets up a mutiny, which means she didn't tell anybody. She didn't tell any of her people what was going on. Great leadership. So yeah, they jump into the shells and they go to Krat. I can't even remember the name of that stupid planet. So, again, while this is going on, I forgot to go back to Luke, and Rey finally decides to leave. She gets into a little thing, meets up with Kylo. They go to Snoke, and at that point, Kylo destroys Snoke, which some people found really, really bad. Actually, I think this is one of the better points of the movie, until it gets destroyed later. But here we are. Kylo has come into his own. He is his own guy, and he kills his master. I thought that was a perfect way of doing it. And then him and Rey kind of tag team against those, against the, Snoke's version of the Royal Guards, which I couldn't figure out how they saw anything anyway. But yeah, so they got killed. But it's a decent scene because in the middle of it the fire starts and then it just reveals the battle behind him. I mean, I thought it was kind of cool. It was one of the few scenes I thought was cool in the whole movie. And, and as at that point when Rey finds out that she was basically from nobody. And this was another aspect I liked about this movie, was that Rey came from nothing. That worked for me. A lot of people were really mad about it. I thought it was good because basically anybody can be a Jedi. That's pretty awesome. That was one of the better parts of the entire movie, was Rey being... All these fan theories were out the window now because Rey was nobody. Awesome. This was a good idea. And I was like, okay, this is the one saving grace of this movie at the time it happened. I was like, okay, great. Rey is nobody. That works for me. I like it. Let's go with it. Yeah, well, we know how that all turned out. But we're not going to get into that yet. Patience. So they go to Krat. And again, things that don't make sense, especially when you see it back. So we have these big ass doors, and we have our resistance. Now, there's very few of them left, so would it not make sense to keep them behind the doors? Because let's face it, when the mini Death Star gun finally goes off and hits the doors, that crack ain't too big. I mean, Luke walks through it in single file. I mean, the First Order troops would have to come in single file. Wouldn't it be smart to kind of barricade inside the door, and when the First Order troops come through, just kind of bottleneck them? Why the hell are you going outside? And why are those little those speeder things that have absolutely no way of standing up to a walker, especially not a jacked up one like these? I was the thing about the First Order. It was like, Snoke was Palpatine's biggest fanboy, and he just made everything the same, just bigger. I mean, it was almost like his thing. I mean, yeah, I know. We'll get to that in a minute. We're still on Jedi. We're still on Last Jedi here. Keep with Last Jedi first. Okay. So, and I mean, of course, you've probably seen the movie, but I'm still going through it. Anyway, they do attack, and then Finn will... This is like my biggest issue in the entire movie, and you know where I'm going here. Finn's getting ready to hit the the Death Star type weapon. He's going to ram into it and destroy it. Out of nowhere, like a Randy Orton RKO, comes Rose. Boom! And that wreck, if you have Last Jedi and you can just move through like the Blu-ray or the DVD, go to that scene again and watch that crash. That crash looks like somebody would have died. I mean, oh my God, it's just devastating. So, and I'm not even getting into, hey, part of the ship was melting, but, open cockpit and Finn's just fine. Yay! Yeah, that was silly too. But anyway. So, somehow, someway, both Finn and Rose survive that crash without a scratch. And then Rose leans down to deliver the stupidest single line I've ever heard in a motion picture ever. We don't win by destroying what we hate. We win by saving what we love. By damn near killing them 30 seconds earlier. I had given up on this movie at that point. I had. But now, we turn around and we get to probably my favorite part of the movie. When Luke arrives, I knew something was up. He looked different. He acted different, but I knew something was up. Had a nice little reunion with Leia and Luke, brother and sister. And then he goes out with his laser sword to face the First Order, which is what he said he would not do. That was good. So then Kylo gets into it, and, we know what happens. They try to, Kylo tries to have a lightsaber duel with him. And then, turns out Luke is a projection. Whoops. I actually thought that was cool. I was really digging that. So, Kylo, for whatever reason, doesn't understand that Luke was a projection the whole time. And it gives time for the Resistance to escape. I left out the Hordor. Excuse me, got my intellectual properties mixed up there. Hodor maneuver. Shit. Yeah, I'll just say the Hodor maneuver was, I don't know. It looked good it looked good, but it didn't make any sense. There, I've said that. So anyway, back to the not quite lightsaber battle. I thought it was pretty cool. And then have that sort of sad moment when Luke dies. And then, we're at the end of the movie with Rey having stolen the Jedi books that Yoda burned. Oh, yeah, that was one thing that was ruined for me when I went to see Last Jedi. Was I think it was CBR posted the day after the premiere and asked, "How do you feel about Yoda being in the movie?" And I went, "You assholes!" And I just unsubscribed to them. I quit following their Facebook page. And I did. I haven't followed it since. And I don't care to either. I was really upset about that. That's a major spoiler, and it's not even been a day. I mean, come on, dudes. So, yeah, Yoda was the other scene that I thought was really good. So, I don't think the whole movie was bad. It had some really bad parts. Had some really good parts. It's kind of... And the things I do appreciate, they try to do something different. They tried to make something different and make it look different and feel different. Now, another criticism I hear, and this is right, I mean, that final battle looks like Hoth. Except, that red stuff coming up. There's salt instead of snow. Which is weird. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. But it looked like Hoth. It even had walkers and everything. So, that's a fair criticism. I mean, there was a little cutting and pasting going on here. And of course, that's why they all went out to the trenches and everything, and They wanted to recreate that instead of thinking logically. And I think the big mistake in this is Rian Johnson wanted to subvert expectations, but I don't think he really got how you do that with Star Wars people. And there was a couple of times I thought some of the things he did with Luke's character, he was just kind of pissing on everything in history. And this is how we find out that there was no plan. And yeah, people get so outraged on this, but I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point there was no plan. Because first off, J.J. Abrams said that Rian Johnson was not locked into anything. He could do anything he wanted to. There was no plan. There never was. And then, they try to act like there was this big plan later. And, one of the funniest comments I've ever heard about this: you have the moral obligation to respect the work that was before you, and you should plan it. No, you don't have the moral obligation. They don't have the moral obligation. They want to make money. That's why they bought Star Wars, was to make money. You don't buy something like Star Wars and not try to make money off of it. So, the way you don't make money off of it is don't have a plan. So, that's The Last Jedi, and oh boy, it was a mixed bag. It was a train wreck. I mean, it was. So, what do you say about this movie? It's like, well, had some good parts, had a lot of bad parts. That's the best thing I can say, is it had a lot of bad parts. So what happens next? Then we have The Rise of Skywalker, which made less sense than The Last Jedi as a title. And so now we get to Rise of Skywalker. A chance to right the boat. A chance to nail the landing. Yeah, that didn't happen. So, even if the plot points are good or bad, apparently it doesn't matter because, first and foremost, the movie starts off with Palpatine returns. So we already know. I mean, right at the scroll, right at the scroll, we know. Right at the beginning crawl, we know Palpatine's back. Okay, so then we jump over to Kylo, and apparently he's on Mustafar, and it didn't look like Mustafar to me. There was a lot of ash, so I could see it being another part of Mustafar. Maybe Mustafar wasn't entirely a volcanic planet, but it kind of looked like, I don't know, somebody put the lava out or something. I mean, it didn't look like Mustafar, but anyway, he finds a wayfinder or something. Goes to follow it, and then he gets Palpatine returns. We have another introduction of Palpatine returns, and the movie never expressly says how this happened. And I know it's in the novelization, but I shouldn't have to go read a novelization to figure this out. It should be explained in the movie because, first of all, Palpatine returns is a pretty big part of that story. Obviously. So shouldn't it be explained right there in the movie? No, it's not. It's not. It's not explained why Palpatine looks like a zombie either. It's just kinda there. And this theme will repeat over and over of things being just there, moving at a lightning speed so that you don't have time to question it. And hopefully you're going to say, oh boy, that was the best Star Wars movie ever. And hopefully you didn't fall for that. And I don't think anyone did, to be perfectly honest about it. So, again, Palpatine returns. Now, this, I could discuss all day how this ruins the story arc of Anakin in Return of the Jedi, but, that's been talked to death. I'm going to mention it, but I'm not going to talk too much about it because we already know this. It's pretty much been established. The thing about Palpatine returns. Okay, I gotta go one more. Okay, but the thing about that is that really bugged me was as soon as Kylo learns that he's been manipulated by this dude all this time that he doesn't even know. He knows nothing about him. Kylo just says, "Sure." Not a bit of fight. He had been rebelling against Luke. He had been rebelling against Snoke. It didn't even match up on a character perspective. It doesn't make any sense. He just kind of goes, "Yeah, sure," and now he's going full Sith. Huh? Yeah. So, and then move along, and then we get to the famous Poe scene of somehow Palpatine returns. Okay, that's the last one. I think I may not. But yeah. So Poe finds this out, from somebody stranger, and yeah, we already know all this. So everything goes at breakneck speed. Blah blah blah. It's just yeah. And about this point, you're about ready to check out because it's like, what the hell is going on in this movie? I don't even know. And so the whole thing about Palpatine returning. Yeah, I didn't do it that time. The whole thing is like it just comes out of left field. It's just there. It just comes out of left field, and you don't even know why or how or what's going on, what his plan is, how he made this ginormous freaking armada in space. I mean, the amount of labor it will require for that is astounding. You don't even get a sense of where that labor came from. And it's like, wait, what's happening? We just trying to look cool now? I mean, the Death Star itself was a big deal. And while we don't get it in the films, we get the sensation that, hollowing out a planet for the Starkiller base was a big deal. And there were costs and there were real life repercussions, and you see it, and it's like, the the extended universe or whatever they're calling it now has tons of stuff about that. I mean, even Rogue One had stuff about that, and it was like it did not make sense how this got put together at all. But anyway, back to Poe. Somehow Palpatine returns, and this whole scene. I mean, I know there's parts of it put in to layer in with Carrie Fisher's footage that was shot, but you can absolutely tell this scene was, really strung together. And then you have that kind of weird moment when Charlie explains to everybody that, the Sith have access to dark magics like cloning, even though cloning was a common thing done on Kamino for the Clone Wars. Yeah, it's dark magic though, right? Yeah, you thought I was going to go for Lord of the Rings, didn't you? I went for Lost. And, that must have really, really been tough for a line for him to deliver, since, he had better line delivery riding Not Penny's boat on his hand. And yes, I noticed Miles was in this movie too from Lost, and yeah, I didn't make a joke about that. I probably should have. So, there. Missed opportunity. Moving on. So, we have all that. And then we have going to a Life Day festival, because why not? And suddenly, the stormtroopers have tracks. Why? Because most of the vehicles in Star Wars at this point have been hovering. What track is going to be better terrain, better terrain than hovering? The speeder bikes hovered. The land speeders hovered. Everything hovered. Skiffs hovered. Because it gets you over little obstacles like rocks and stuff. Yeah, you can still run into things like trees and rocks, big rocks. But whose idea was it to go backwards and put tracks on this thing? It's supposed to be a high-speed vehicle, and seems like if you want a high-speed vehicle, you'd probably want it to hover at this point in technology. But no, instead we just step back and start using old school technology because reasons, I guess. Yeah, reasons. And so, yeah, they pop them in there, and they jetpack, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and they fly now, we know. Yada, yada, yada. And then all that desert, and they crash into the sands. Oh, this is after running into Lando, who just feels sort of shoehorned in at this point. I mean, I was happy to see Lando, but come on, this didn't feel like the place Lando should have showed up. It just felt really off. But he showed up anyway. So, moving again, you have that like, oh, Rey, I got something to tell you line, and that just kind of dies off and never gets resolved. So they find a dagger, and like, apparently 3PO can read it, but it turns him evil if he does. How would he know that? Unless he read it and knew it would turn him evil. And how do you turn a droid evil? How's that even possible? How do you change a droid from its basic programming? By reading something. I mean, I know it's supposed to be magic and everything, but you know, there was some logic to Star Wars that made sense. This didn't make any sense. So it's like, I don't know. Again, confusion. And it doesn't matter anyway, because it's, you know, it is lost anyhow. And, you know, there was a backup, you know, R2 made a backup, and then everything's okay. So why bother? Why bother? Let's have a false death. Because, you know, coming up, we have another false death that is resolved 2 minutes later. When, you know, Rey accidentally kills Chewie with Force lightning. And finds out she's a Palpatine. Or does she find out? You know, this movie moves so erratically, I don't even remember how she found out she was a Palpatine. And again, you know, the whole point is Kylo Ren is being sent out to kill her, but Palpatine's plan is to turn her to the dark side and possess her? And I know I'm getting ahead because as it unfolds, it just makes less and less sense. So I'm going to interlude here for a second and say one thing I heard, one idea I heard that people thought were better. And I actually thought this was a better idea. Have Luke, having been projecting himself to Rey through The Last Jedi, and then in secret he was training a new Jedi Order, and he was testing Rey the whole time. That's why he was all grumpy and everything. And then he's trying to, and he reveals himself, and he's trying to train her to face Kylo. Is it convoluted? Yes. It is less convoluted than Palpatine returns. And whatever the hell Palpatine's doing, you never get a real clear idea of his endgame because it keeps changing. So, yeah. Because, you know, like I said, Kylo's supposed to kill Rey, and then he's not supposed to kill Rey because reasons. So, yeah, they all go to Endor, but not the forest moon of Endor. This is a kind of ocean movement of Endor. I meet a bunch of people who apparently are stormtroopers who broke their programming just like Finn. Wow! Yeah, great opportunity to finally resolve this storyline. No. It just happens. That's it. Just happens. It's very random, apparently. No one knows why. No one explains why. Oh well. Oh, in the meantime, Rose has been completely cut out of the movie. I think she appears for 1 minute in the movie and is completely cut out. So, I mean, you can't even give her a little bit of something to do to redeem what character assassination they did to her in the last movie. We just let her go to the side. And all the while, Leia is kind of sort of dying. And they did have a training montage at the beginning I left out because, hey guys, look, Rey does train. Yeah, you needed that 2 movies ago, unfortunately, and you don't have it. So it's a little bit late for that. Yeah. And so for whatever reason that it happened, that although the Death Star 2 was completely obliterated, somehow this big chunk we didn't see, nobody got to see, landed on this sort of grassy field and water planet. First off, a chunk that size would have messed up the planet's ecosystem for years. And I don't understand how come it goes to another moon instead of going to Endor. Why don't we just go to Endor? We can see the Ewoks again. I mean, marketing, guys. I don't even have to bring Wicket back. I mean, you could have another bunch of Ewoks. I mean, there could be another tribe somewhere. But, yeah. And I mean, they don't have to be a big part. It's just kind of like a cameo. Hey, teddy bears are here. But no, we don't even do that much. Yeah. So, and again, this dagger comes into play because if you hold it the right way, you can find the spot where you can find the holocron. And how exactly does this work? Because this dude apparently made this dagger 20 years earlier for a place he's never seen. But the movie is moving so fast. Again, you don't really have time to question it. It just keeps that breakneck speed going. And then Rey goes in, encounters a dark side version of herself that we get no explanation about, and who apparently has a switchblade for a lightsaber. Okay. Why? Is this supposed to be like the Luke scene in Empire Strikes Back when he cuts off Vader's head and sees his own face in Vader's helmet? It kind of failed. So then again, Kylo and Rey start fighting for reasons. They again, Kylo's trying to kill Rey, but then Palpatine's trying to get Rey to turn to the dark side. And okay, Rey's had training now, so she beats him. And here's the thing. Okay, there are times, and this is one of the best examples, that scene where they're fighting on the remnants of the Death Star, and the water's crashing in. The look of it is really good. It looks good. I mean, that does look good. But everything around it is weird and strange, and of course Finn shows up and starts screaming Rey's name because that's all he can do. I mean, I've seen people cut together reels of basically Finn screaming Rey, and it goes on for a while. So, yeah, and I have left out the whole thing with Poe being a spice runner and everybody being like, oh god, how outrageous, like Han Solo used to do. yeah, I mean, you do what you have to do in the galaxy to get by. Why is that suddenly so bad? You know, Han Solo did it. Nobody batted an eye. Poe does it, and like everybody hates him for no reason. Yeah, okay. Now we got that out of the way too. And again, Rey ends up stabbing Kylo because his mom touched his brain or something, and that kills Leia for reasons. I mean, yeah, they had to kill her off in the movie because, you know, that unfortunately Carrie Fisher had passed away at that point. Had not passed away in in The Last Jedi, but had passed away at this point. So he used footage from The Last Jedi and kind of cobbled something together. But still, it just, yeah, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like, you know, oh, my mom, she spoke to me. Now, then gets into another scene. Harrison Ford shows back up and just kind of is a memory to Kylo, and just has a little conversation with him, which, I don't know, is Kylo gone nuts? I mean, he was already kind of nuts already, but did he go further nuts and start seeing visions of his dad or something? I mean, Han ain't a Force ghost. We established that. I mean, they clearly say he's not a Force ghost, but he's still there when he's dead. So, what is this? It's just so weird. And meanwhile, Rey is running off to, space hell to face Palpatine. Now, also in all this time, Lando's supposedly running around gathering up forces. So, that whole thing, yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But, so then that's when Palpatine reveals his true plan, which I did get ahead of myself on, was that he's going to try to turn her to the dark side and possess her. And again, that's just, why were you trying to kill her then? And and I did skip over the scene where, Luke shows back up and says, you got to respond. He's saying the exact opposite of what he said in the last movie. He was like, you got to respect your Jedi weapon, and at no point does Rey make her own lightsaber. Oh, wait. No, I mean in this movie, not that she doesn't at the end, but I keep getting ahead of myself because, again, this movie moves so damn fast, and that's the reason it moves so damn fast, is so that you can't keep up. You don't question it. You just are like boom, 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 bombarded, and you can't like breathe for a second and go, wait a minute, that didn't make any sense. And that's fine in some movies. In a Star Wars movie of this magnitude, no, you got to slow it down a little bit. There has to be some slow down moments where it's like, oh, and some character moments and stuff like that. I know I sound like an old man, but anyway. And so, then there's this harebrained plan to, apparently all the ships are controlled by this ship, this tower on the ground. They gotta kill the tower and it will destroy all the ships, which is really weird. But then apparently one ship controls it, and so we gotta destroy that ship or destroy the controller or something, and then we have, ex-stormtroopers marching out on animals to destroy this thing, and it doesn't, because, the other thing is okay, if that's the case, when you get too many people attacking, why not switch it? Can't you switch control of the ship to another ship? So then it's like, they got to start all over again. And it never really gets explained. It's like they can't navigate in an atmosphere or something. And why would you have to be controlled by one to navigate out of the atmosphere? I don't know what this means. But ultimately, so apparently the super laser in the Death Star got put onto a Star Destroyer, so now yeah, now we can just blast planets from a Star Destroyer, so we don't even need the Death Star. And so, how did that work? How did that happen? And of course, Lando shows up with a ton of other people that, the only person we really know is Wedge. None of the other people that we've met throughout this trilogy show up here for this final moment and this final battle. It's supposed to be this epic battle, and it just kind of was like, okay, lots of cool ships. Not much else to it. So, yeah. And then Kylo and Rey are basically switching lightsabers with each other and helping each other out, and da da da. And of course, Rey had already healed Kylo with a skill she didn't know how to, had never used before. And that's one I kind of bend a little bit on, because let's look at the end of Return of the Jedi. Anakin never learned how to become a Force Ghost either, but he did it. How did he do that? Yeah, I mean, it's and apparently it was very hard unless you were trained in it. So how did he do it? Yeah, you see. So, yeah, I did kind of let it go for that reason. That wasn't the worst thing in the world, but yeah, and then Rey kind of just sort of takes Luke's and Leia's lightsaber for reasons, and kills Palpatine really dead for this time, because he was electrifying the entire fleet or something, and which didn't make any sense. It's like, if you got that much damn power, it's it seemed like the Emperor was supercharged or something. It was weird. And somehow they're a dyad, which never gets explained what a Force dyad is. And there's zero explanation for this. Period. There's zero explanation what a dyad is, but they are one. So yeah, I mean, a dyad means two, obviously, but you can kind of infer what it is, but you don't get any explanation in the movie. And again, don't tell me to go read this thing, because it should be explained to me as the story is unfolding, since it became a big plot point. I mean, for whatever reason, it is the way that Palpatine becomes young again. So, yeah, anyway, Rey kills him, apparently, because, falling down a reactor and then having the space station the reactor that you fell down explode isn't enough. You gotta get more Force lightning in your face. And yeah, and the big space fleet is defeated, blah blah blah. And so Rey then, for whatever reason, goes back to Tatooine and buries Luke and Leia's sabers there. Why? I don't know. And some old woman is like, who are you? And she says, I'm Rey Skywalker. Why did she take Luke's name? That made no sense. Made absolutely no sense. And there's no explanation given. I mean, she had a much closer connection to Leia Organa. Could have maybe even argued Solo. But, there's no real explanation given for why she took on Luke's name. It's just kind of there. It's this grumpy old man she met one weekend. And that's it. And so, in the resulting ending of this thing is just a mess. And, I want to point to parts that are good, but it almost becomes worse than Last Jedi. Just because it's so... I mean, it's just messy. It's just... They're trying to turn the boat right, and in doing so, capsize it. And yeah, okay. You can blame Rian Johnson for writing and directing a bad movie. That's a given. People say, "Well, look what Rian Johnson gave him to work with," and I hate that argument because it's like, you know, yeah, he had less to work with, but he could have turned in something better, and he just decided not to. He just decided to go with what he thought was safe, and in the end, not only wasn't safe, it just wasn't good. It was just a mess of a mess. And in the end, I think we all suffered for it because our joy just a few years before of having Star Wars back was basically ruined. And thankfully that's turned around. We've gotten some things better, which I will talk about in separate videos. But and this sequel trilogy has just, some fans have just turned on Disney as a company as a result of it. Oh, Disney can't do anything right, and they will trash on everything, no matter how good it is. I mean, they'll trash on it, and I don't think that's entirely fair. I mean, I will say, I really wish Dave Filoni had worked on some of the movies, because I think that would have improved them greatly. Dave just understands Star Wars. Clone Wars is still probably my favorite Star Wars media outside of the original trilogy. And The Mandalorian's a close second. So, the guy knows what he's talking about. Bad Batch is really good. I mean, it's like the guy knows his stuff. And, Favreau does too. So, doesn't hurt, to have those guys on board. Giving you insights, giving you ideas, giving you things to work with. I'm sure they would have spotted all the issues with this sequel trilogy. Again, having a plan would have helped. But even barring that, there was plenty of other things you could have done that would have made this work. I mean, to me, I don't think Kylo should have ever been redeemed. I think he should have been a villain the whole time. And it's fine to keep Rey the hero, but keep that in mind that Kylo shouldn't be redeemed. I firmly believe that. And I think redeeming him might have been the worst thing that they did in the entire trilogy, because his character becomes strange and boring now. And yeah, he also got to use the healing thing without ever practicing it. And it's like, you know what? By that point, I've almost checked out. I tried to rewatch the sequel trilogy for this video, and I'm going to be honest with you. When I got to Rise of Skywalker, I kind of checked out, because it was like, wow. Taking the movie by itself, it's at least pretty. It's at least a pretty movie. It looks good. It looks real good. But it's not a good movie. There's so many convoluted things that happen in it that it ruins the experience for everyone who watches it. And some people say I'm crazy for that. I say I'm not alone in that opinion. There were at least some qualities in The Last Jedi that were redeemable. I'll give it that much. There are so many bad parts of The Last Jedi as I've gone over. It is, hard to watch now. I mean, it's just so many bad parts. I made it through Last Jedi, though. I could not make it through Rise of Skywalker. I just knew what was going to happen. I was just like, man, this is so bad. Surprisingly, The Force Awakens didn't bother me to watch. still enjoy it. I mean, I know what happens later, but I still enjoy The Force Awakens. I wish it had gone a different direction, but I still enjoy that movie as it is. So, that's saying something right there. Is that at least one of these movies is pretty decent. So, what happened? I mean, I chalk it up to there wasn't a plan, and that's why it just isn't that good. So, the sequels, yeah, they're pretty rotten. I'm just going to say it's pretty rotten. So next time, not next time, but next Star Wars I do, we're going to do the prequels. We're going to do the prequel trilogy. We're going to go over that and I'll taco about it. Until then, well, now you know my opinion of the sequel trilogies. Sequel trilogy, not trilogies. But until then, thank you so much for watching Infinite Realms and listening to me ramble on about Star Wars stuff. And don't forget to like and subscribe.